Sie, dass die Maske auf der Nase bleiben muss. Genießen Sie bitte hoch. Okay?
And this right here. And this way, please.
And to the left. More to the left, please.
Morning.
Come to the top.
And so you forget me right here. You forget me right here.
To the left corner, please.
Don't miss us out over here, please. Would you miss the time? Yeah, that's fine. One view here, please.
Once more to the left, please.
You forgot me right
Once more to the left, please.
Turn your head a little bit to your left, please. Turn across again.
And back to your left.
And to your left, please.
One here.
Miss, excuse me. Left, please. To the left again.
And to the left, please. First one.
Thank you very much.
So schön, dann im Blick hier bitte. So schön, wunderbar, bei mir bleiben.
Nochmal hier im Blick.
Kommen Sie bitte weiter vor. Einmal nochmal ganz in die Ecke, bitte.
Und nochmal. Genau.
Und hier den Blick.
Nochmal hier daneben den Blick.
Und hier bitte den Blick. So schön, bei mir bleiben, das ist klasse. So, hier bitte.
Nochmal links den Blick. Nochmal nach links, gut. Bitte nochmal links den Blick. Ja, sehr schön.
Wunderbar. Das ist schön. Fantastisch. Und einfach mal genau die Lücke, nochmal genau die Lücke zwischen den beiden. And again here, please. And again, shoulder, please. Aber mit dir, wunderbar. Sehr, sehr schön. Danke, danke. Können Sie noch mal hier rüber? Einmal über die Schulter, bitte. Ja.
Sag mal die zweite Reihe.
And one over the shoulder, please. And one more. Einmal links, bitte. Noch einmal die Schulter mit. Ja, wunderbar. Please, one more, here. Down. Last one here. Right side. Right side. Einmal auf. Links, down. Here, right side.
Hey, how are you?
Would you please? Can you please? And here, please. One by one.
One more again, please.
One more here, please. One more to left, please.
Just right here, yeah.
And here.
And another one right here.
And one more to left, please. One more look to left, yes. And one here, please. Thank you.
And like this right here? Yeah.
And right here in the opportunity for two guys. Yes, thank you. Beautiful. That's a smile, thank you.
Sir, right side. Right side, please, sir.
And would you turn your head to the left? Oh, thank you.
Right side, right side. Back to your palette, straight. Back to your palette first. Sir. Second roll, please. Let me break the protocol. You do like this, you do like this.
We need it. That's nice. Can we have it over here, please?
No, this is the start.
No.
Just have it be
Over here,
made.
the boss, please. He needs a picture as well. What do you need to find?
Wait, okay.
Just on here. Together, and not here. One more to left, please. Go to the left, please. Thank you. Very nice. Okay, sir. This way. I want to say sir. Middle up. Yeah, that's nice. Sir, down. Sir, down, sir. And one more back. I want it one more back.
This way. Yeah. I'll go to the left, please.
And back to your left, please.
Sir, down. Thank you very much.
This way, sir.
Can you look back to the
One more, sir. M. Night. Sir, one final big smile straight ahead. Thank you so much. Sir, one more.
Since you're all very pronounced, you can stick together, and I would like to ask you to step one step forward. And you two, you start. Okay, and then you start looking from the left to the right. You can get closer since you're very pronounced. Can you all move one step to the left, please?
Oh, 2 steps. 2 steps would be better. Perfect.
Please.
Yeah, this is it.
Up, all together, please.
Everyone can be quiet.
So where do we
Please,
start?
all together this way.
Shall we start there?
All of you, please.
Yeah, okay.
And one straight again, please. But again, it's not.
Go together to your left, please.
Fantastic, thank you. That's beautiful.
Yeah, hands right, hands
Right
up.
in the middle now.
Right in the middle and up. Yeah, this is fine.
Yeah, and all ear, please.
Go together to
Please,
your
sir,
left,
sir,
please.
sir. All ear, yeah, all ear, yeah.
You made it in big.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Good morning. Welcome. We're going to start. Are you ready? Thank you. Good morning and welcome to the press conference for the jury of the 72nd Berlin International Film Festival. I'm going to proceed to introducing the jurors who are going to watch 18 films and decide on the Golden Bear and other awards, which will be announced next Wednesday, so on the 16th. So starting by the left end of the table, she has learned the craft of film production in Berlin before setting up her company in Zimbabwe, where she became the first black woman to direct a feature film. Her literary work, which includes This Mournable Body, has earned her recognition and awards such as last year's Peace Award from the German book trade from Zimbabwe, Tsitsi Dangarembga. From France and Tunisia, an inspired and inspiring producer who brought to life films by Brian De Palma, David Cronenberg, Philippe Garrel, Kleber Mendonça Filho, Paul Verhoeven, and of course he's a Golden Bear winner for 2019 Synonyms by Nadav Lapid, Saïd Ben Saïd. She has shined both in Hollywood and art house cinema in her Danish native language or others. She was recently an amnesiac woman trying to put together the puzzle of her life in the series Close to Me. And of course, she's the queen of the Amazons, the Wonder Lady, Connie Nielsen. Ever since the sensational success of The Sixth Sense in 1999, people have been eagerly expecting every one of his new films. Through various ventures, he has maintained signature qualities such as, but not only, his capacity to draw spectacular performances from his actors, and in particular, a rare talent to direct children. His characters strive to understand and to grow, and indeed he always incites us to remain open to differences and to listen to Mother Nature. He takes on small parts in his own films, but in this week's mystery he has much more than a supporting role. He is the president of the jury, M. Night Shyamalan. How could we live without him before his breakthrough success in the Locarno Festival in 2015 with Happy Hour? Last year he treated us not only with one but two gems, The Wheel of Fortune and Fantasy, which won the Grand Jury Prize here in Berlin, and Cannes' Best Screenplay winner, Drive My Car, which has earned 4 Oscar nominations, including Best Film and Best Director, Ryûsuke Hamaguchi. From Germany, she knows all the sections of Berlinale. She won the Perspektive Deutsches Kino Award with Two Mothers. She was in competition in 2016 with 24 Weeks, which won the Silver Lola for Best Film. And her last film, Co-Pilot, premiered last year at Panorama, Anne Zohra Berrached. And from Brazil and Algeria, he's a winner of the Cannes Un Certain Regard main prize with Invisible Life. He's also very beloved at Berlinale, with Panorama having showed 2 of his documentaries. And he was also in competition in 2014 with Praia do Futuro, Futuro Beach, Karim Aïnouz. I'll just start with a quick question to the president of the jury, Mr. Shyamalan. You have been very vocal and enthusiastic about our invitation for you to preside over this jury, and we thank you for it. Now that the festival has started and you have met your co-jurors, how are you feeling about this mission?
I woke up this morning just so excited to watch these movies. I was telling all my colleagues how excited I was like, are we gonna watch? When are we gonna watch another movie? I'm feeling like a kid here, and these guys are kind of the perfect partners in crime here to go through this. We already talk so much about cinema and what it means, and for me it's perpetual student. So to study every movie and learn from it, and the things that make each individual, when they tell a story, what we'll call their blind spots, is part of the beauty of the way they see the world, and so it's part of their strength. So what I don't see when I make a movie, it's part of the strength. And so it's such a beautiful thing to talk about what's working and what's challenging in movies. And I can't wait to have these conversations every single day until we're done here. Very exciting. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Are there questions? Yes, please.
I remember as a child going to the movies in Montreal from a small town and these beautiful movie theaters, and some of these movie experiences stayed with me even today. So I would like the members of the jury to share their first great movie experience, what hooked them to cinema. We have suffered so much, all of us, in the last 2 years worldwide, and I think movies is really, these movie experiences, anyway, for me, what kept me going. So could you please share this with us, please?
Do you want to start at one end?
Okay, yes. Do I have everything on that I should have on? Yeah, good. My love affair with moving images, not exactly movies, began when I was a child. I was fostered, and so I spent a lot of time on my own, and I was just put down in front of the TV. So that was the first time when I realized that moving images can take you somewhere else. But then when I went back to my biological family, my dad absolutely loved movies. He was a professional man, and it wasn't easy for people of color to go to the movies in Zimbabwe, which was Rhodesia. But then they opened a drive-in, and black people were allowed to go to the drive-in because we stayed in our cars and didn't mix with other people. And he took us to see To Sir with Love, and that was the moment for me. That's when I knew that movies can move people in ways that seem almost impossible, that movies can bring different things together that one never would have thought could come together and could just make the world a better place.
Shall I say something? Well, cinema, for me, has always been like a religion, you know. And as a cinephile, I always been a very religious man. And I enjoy, of course, watching films at my place, at home. But for a religious man, the church is the most important place to watch movies, and the church is the theater. That's what I can say about my relationship with movies and about the theater, about the church. I really love to go to the theater, and like you, I missed going to the movie theater for 3 years. I'm very happy to be here because we're back to the church together.
My family have been in the movie theater business forever. My great-great-grandparents opened some of the first movie theaters in Denmark. My great-grandmother was an entrepreneur back when the female entrepreneur just was not very usual. She had her own movie theater. And so when I grew up, I saw pictures of these palaces for movies. And in my little town, the movie also represented the ability to see a world that was simply not accessible to me in my small town. And I think one of my first film experiences, which my very religious mother took me to, I think because she erroneously thought it would stop me from ever trying to do anything illicit. It was a Christiane from Bahnhof Zoo. And it did, in fact, shock the bejesus out of me, but it also was so exciting as an experience because it felt so visceral as an experience that I realized, oh my God, movies can be many things. It's not just Marilyn Monroe on Sundays. It's because in Sundays in Denmark you could see a movie on TV, including Marilyn Monroe. And so for me, Christiane F. was like that first meeting with a movie that was trying to say something very deep in a shocking way, and it did. And since then, I've been in love with movies that are trying to say deeper things in a shocking way.
You know, I was lucky enough to grow up at a time when kind of Lucas and Spielberg were making movies that were aimed right at me, at my age, at 11, 12, that kind of thing. So my friend said, let's go to this movie. And I did not want to go to this movie. I thought it was about science because he said some word about archaeology. And so I was thinking, I don't want to see a movie about science. But he forced me to go. We waited out line. The line was enormous to get into this old, big movie theater. We were one of the last ones to get in. We couldn't sit together, and I'm a super shy kid. And this was about as scary as you can get. So I'm sitting in this 1,200-seat theater, old theater with all the statues and all that stuff. And there was a couple that was sitting next to me, and they could see I was very scared and, you know, like tight like this. And they went and they got me popcorn and drinks. And this was an innocent time back then when you would just take it and have it. I'm sitting there with the popcorn. And then the logo comes up and the mountain comes up for Paramount. And it turns into Raiders of the Lost Ark. And I was, you know, I speak of religion as well when I think about cinema. And I was indoctrinated that day and just taken away. I felt I was seeing something that was so inspired and so fun, and the entire theater was locked as one entity, all 1,200 of us. And when we finished, my friend was outside and he was talking and I wasn't listening and I was just transported. And you know, sometimes they talk about professional athletes that they have a chance encounter with somebody. They meet a champion or something like that in a hallway or something, and then they go on to become a professional boxer or a basketball player. And that kind of thing felt like that. I was, at that moment, I said, I need to recreate this feeling in my life. How do I do that? How do I make stories? I mean, it's always been church to me as well.
Hello, let me speak in Japanese. この子供時代っていうと、
When I look back to my childhood, I cannot talk about anything religious. To me, I had an experience of finding this movie. That was Back to the Future Part 2. That was a discovery for me. Of course, I watched several films, but I never imagined that such an interesting film existed in the world. And since then, I started going to a movie theater. And I am not a very outgoing person. I was rather introvert. But inside the space of a movie theater, I was able to be released from this daily life. And that was a very important experience for me. So what I'm creating now is totally different from Back to the Future, but movies are exciting. Movies have a power to change your life, and this message I will never forget.
I grew up in a really small village, and there was no option to go to the cinema, so I first was watching TV a lot with my grandfather. It was only my grandfather, my mother, and my brother and me, and I was often alone, so I watched a lot with him. And then I remember one situation in which my mom, I don't know why, took me to a movie theater, and I watched a Hitchcock film, Das Fenster zum Hof. And I will never forget, as a child, I was maybe 9 or 10, how it felt to watch a film on a big screen. And all those feelings I had were more intensive and stronger and deeper. And I really loved the experience. But after that time, I needed to go back to the TV, to watch TV with my grandfather. But I think it's super important, especially in those times we are in right now, that we support cinema, and I think we are all sitting here because we love cinema so much, and I like to go to the cinema so much now, and yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I was raised by a single mother who was super busy, and we never went to the cinema. I was actually watching TV for a long time as well, for many years. And I remember there was one Sunday she took me to see Saturday Night Fever, and it was just incredible, just the joy of seeing people celebrating life and dancing on the screen and being transported to a completely different country that I had never really understood and thought about was kind of unforgettable. Then back to watching TV, and then back to the cinema very rarely. And I never thought I would actually be doing and making films. And I think in every film I make, there's at least one dance scene, which I think it's always going back to that joy of seeing John Travolta in that dance floor at that time. So I think it's really learning that cinema is really a celebration of life and of incredible characters. So I feel very grateful that I can still be making it, really.
Hello, my question is to Mr. Hamaguchi. I just want to ask to you to share us your feelings. How is the same time to sitting here, make some decisions for other directors like a hand judge. At the same time, you will be the nominated in American Academy Oscar, yes. And the same time, you have some different chairs. You know, you are waiting something, and now you have some hand to make decision. How is your feeling at this time? Thank you.
はい。まずこの場にいられることをとても光栄に思っています。
I'm very happy to be here.
このM. ナイト・シャマラン監督のチームに入れたこと、審査員のチームに入れたことということをとても光栄に思っています。シャマラン監督のやっていることっていうのは。
Because what Mr. Shyamalan is doing is to create an independent and blockbuster films or something in between. Kind of perfect mixture between independent and non-conventional. And this is actually the message that Mr. Shyamalan was chosen as the head of the jury. Of course, there are many films that are shown in Hollywood, and there are many films shown in the Berlinale, but actually there's something the same in essence. So I'll be able to watch all those films from the same perspective. And I'm willing to have a fruitful discussion among the jury, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Hi, Christian Pogadets from Austria. I have a question for Mr. Shyamalan. It's nice to see someone who's been making horror movies for most of his career as the head of the Berlinale jury. And in the last few years, there's been quite a few developments within this genre with something that some might refer to as elevated horror gaining a lot of traction. Where do you see the future of horror cinema or genre filmmaking in general headed? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. You know, I have kind of theories about genre. You know, a lot of people refer to my films that way, I think, and then the reason that you do that is because that's the most high-octane genre of the mix of genres that I do in the movie. When we can go on and on about this, and we can talk about this later, you guys. But there's a kind of as you're mixing genres, you can always, and the movement of telling the story, you can move up in high octane from like drama to mystery to thriller to supernatural thriller to horror, and you kind of move up in that cast. You can never go backwards when you tell that story. And then what ends up happening is whatever the highest form of the genre that you touch, whether even it's for 10 minutes, it's perceived as the entire movie is perceived that way. So for me personally, you can see I think of it more as a mix, and most of my movies are dramas at the end of the day, kind of having this clothing on it, and so they have this perception of elevated. Of the last genre that it's in, I find that juxtaposition of those languages very, very fruitful. You know, I was moved. When I went to the Academy Awards, you'll meet some amazing people. I met Robert Wise when I was there, and his daughter came up and said, "Oh, my father wants to meet you." And I went over, and I couldn't believe who I was meeting. And he was one, you know, The Haunting and that he did, you know, that's so inspiring to me. I think, you know, when we feel a little bit disconcerted and the way we feel when we feel fear, it opens us up emotionally to things, and I can put on you experiences that stay with you, that are more indelible, that stay with you for a long time. The goal is to be the most resonant story. That's for me the goal. So, and this genre, touching that genre helps me do that with you guys. So I'm very happy that the more it gets seen as a tool and not necessarily as an exploitation thing.
Hello, it's Kuriko from eiga.com. I have two questions to Mr. Ryûsuke Hamaguchi. First of all, I will repeat later the question in English, in Japanese.
You don't have to. You don't have to. I'm listening to you.
Okay. First of all, congratulations for nominations of Academy Award. Your film, Wheel of Fortune and Fantasy, was in the competition of Berlinale last year and was awarded the Jury Grand Prix. So what kind of festival to you? What does it mean, the Berlinale mean to you? And the second question is, so this year you are jury. So when you decide the award with your colleagues, what will be your criteria like? Thank you.
はい。そのベルリン国際映画祭、まあこのアーティスティック
Karol Chatorian, artistic director, requested me to join the group of jury, and I was very honored. And he actually chose my Happy Award as an awardee, and which opened up the path for further development in my career. And of course, all those films that are chosen under very fair criteria. But I feel very grateful that he found my film. And based on that experience, I have been chosen as a jury, and I feel honored. So I must say that Berlinale is a very well thought out event. What is the meaning of an international film festival? This was thought out very well, very thoroughly. And under those circumstances, there's also a warmth in this festival. Very human-like warmth has been always provided to the people. So in that sense, this is a very rare film festival, and this is solely thanks to the consideration of all participants and the staff. But the criteria, I still do not know. But some films which might give a deep impression, and this should be expressed or described in words. And I'm sure that those words will come out based on the discussions with my team members.
Hello, and congratulations to us all for being back to church. My question is to all the jury members. In the latest years, there is a tendency which Mr. Hamaguchi has already mentioned, that this rift between the mainstream cinema and the festival cinema is getting smaller until to non-existent. And now we see, for example, Mr. Hamaguchi's movies in Oscar nomination, Jane Campion's movies in Oscars, and they're also winning festival awards. So my question is, what do you think, would this tendency go further? Would this difference be non-existent in some years? And is it good for the festival cinema and for the mainstream cinema? Or there should be some distinction? Thank you.
Do you want to start at that end?
Sure. I think it's very liberating, the fact that certain films that were not celebrated before by the mainstream can actually be celebrated now. So I think it's a really positive thing. But I think also festivals are really interesting as a place of discovery of new talent and of new ways of storytelling. So I think it's a really interesting moment in one way, but also I think that festivals are not always about sort of bridging the mainstream and the non-mainstream cinema, but also a place of discovery. So I think it's also important to remember that before we get there, there's a lot of paths we need to get to, and I think festivals should keep. We've been seeing incredible films here, and some of them I watch, and I think, is anybody going to see them? How are they going to? And I think they're really original, and the role of festivals is exactly to shed light also in things that probably won't cross to the mainstream, but I think, it can help those filmmakers to keep working and developing their own calligraphy, I would say.
Yeah, I think too, it is both. There are for sure some films which are very unique, which we're going to see here, and it's really nice to have the responsibility to help those films to get further. I wouldn't say it is like you say. It is. There are some films, that's true, but we also have that big blockbusters now, which are really far away from the cinema we watch here in festivals. So it is a bit of both.
In my
view, of course, you are talking about this between mainstream films and artistic films. And when we look at the past history, there was no gap between these two categories. So the role played by Berlinale is to declare that there is no gap between these categories. Even though it might look like an art house film, it might have some commercial tinge. And so I'm sure that we will find ourselves in the situation to declare that there's no difference or there's a distance between these two categories.
This is a subject I think about a lot. The thing you're talking about, because as Mr. Hamaguchi said, I kind of live in the center there with loves on both sides. I try to think of it this way, that when you're making a commercial movie, what we'll just call as a commercial movie, the storytellers are entirely acknowledging the audience. They're entirely, making it solely for the audience. The taxi driver, the doorman who paid and came in, and they're saying, we're going to make you laugh, and we're going to make you gasp, and we're completely thinking about you. And that's wonderful to see the audience. When they leave the theater, though, they're not necessarily changed. They are the same person that they were when they walked in. They were seen, and that's beautiful to be seen. And then on the other side, what we'll call independent cinema is almost the worldview of a very specific person. And that's so specific that they're not actually seeing us. They're not saying, hey, we see you and we're going to make sure that you are being seen and entertained. I want to tell you about my point of view of this story. And what's so beautiful about that is you're seeing a new perspective on the world. And so when you walk out of the cinema, when you see that, you've changed. And you're not the same person, but you weren't necessarily seen. And so sometimes it's a little harder to watch. It takes a little bit more effort. You're keeping up and watching their perspective of pace and emotion and value systems, and you change because of that. My hope has always been that you guys can see me a little bit, and I see you guys. So that's been my dream for that, and I do think it's a continuum. They're both beautiful ways to tell stories, so it's where you choose to be on that continuum.
I think that blockbusters and mainstream filmmaking is an incredibly important measure with which to get people to also be interested in more singular voices and more difficult to access movies. For actors, for example, I think it's great for us to participate in very big blockbuster movies with the hope that when you are also doing films that are less accessible and perhaps just less pleasure-seeking as an experience for the audience, you're hoping that the audience will go with you and watch the more difficult to approach storylines. And I think that film festivals are essential to mixing precisely this thing where you get the attention grabbing and no issue budgets with the really hard to do difficult stories. I think Shyamalan is right in saying that, you know, films do have the potential of changing your life, and sometimes it's the more difficult to access films that do so. And so film festivals, in my opinion, are incredibly important to give voice and space to films that otherwise might not get distribution.
I think the best answer to your question is Nighttime Shyamalan, because his movies are very entertaining. They are target for the large audience. And in the meantime, they are almost experimental movies. They are meaningful and they have personality. So that's what we expect as an audience, as a cinephile, from a film, to be very entertaining and to make you think.
Yes, I am very invested in your question because for me it's a question about diversity in broad terms, and of course I want to see even more diversity in the film industry. So I have been watching Sidney Poitier's films since he passed away. I tried to go chronologically, starting from the 50s. And what I saw that was very interesting to me was that a lot of his early films were big studio films, but they were issue-based. So the question for me then becomes, when did this separation occur? I mean, I think it was 57, he did an adaptation of a novel, Something of Value, in Kenya, about the Mau Mau rebellion. And it was beautiful. I found it really beautiful. So for me, the question then becomes, when did this separation occur? When did it become not quite right commercially in cinema not to engage with issues? And I think that perhaps if one looks at the political history of the countries that have been at the forefront of moving cinema, one might be able to find reasons for that. And so I think the fact that we now see the two coming together, not the blockbuster, obviously, but commercial and issue-based converging now, I do think that this is due to the very dedicated and targeted work of festivals like the Berlinale and some of the other big festivals, Sundance, for example, Toronto, because I think that the people who lead those festivals are aware of the necessity to exploit the transformational power of film and to make sure that that can reach a larger audience. So I really do think that the convergence now is due to the hard work of people who understand the power of cinema and who have the platforms for it.
Thank you so much to the jury for your thoughtful answers, and thank you for your questions. Have a good day and have a good festival.